The masculine men are winning, and here's why. Men are often regarded as fiercer, more cutthroat rivals in the workplace than women. These gender inequalities are especially obvious in the field of bargaining, where males generally get greater results. However, if men fight harder than women at the negotiating table, they may also fight dirtier, adopting unethical practices such as open fraud more frequently. In the public discussion of war, there is much talk about violations, cruelty, and violence, but relatively little about men. However, men are overwhelmingly the practitioners of organized violence as ideologies, planners, technical designers, and frontline workers. So in the humanitarian sector, why don't we all talk a lot more about men, masculinity, and masculine culture of violence? Hello and welcome. Today's video will talk about how masculine men are winning and what the reason behind it is. So let's get straight into the video. What exactly is masculinity? Masculinity, also known as manhood and manliness, set of behaviors, roles, and characteristics associated with being a male. Well, it's widely assumed to be a social construct. Extensive studies have revealed that some masculine behaviors can be biologically impacted. The extent to which biology determines masculinity, however, is still contested. Masculinity is not the same as the definition of the masculine sex. This is because some females and gay men can exhibit masculine characteristics. Traditional manliness norms change depending on generation, ethnicity, and culture. In most cultures, masculine characteristics include independence, courage, fearlessness, strength, aggressiveness, and leadership. 2015, the Center for the Study of Men and Masculinities, along with masculinity expert Michael Kimmel, helped launch the first ever master's program in masculinity studies. This is a program about what it means to be a man in current culture. Kimmel noticed during the lesson that the message boys receive from society about being a man or manhood is confusing. This perplexity impacts men's personal lives, including their relationships with women, work, and society. Mostly men. Is it primarily men who are to blame for the horrors of war? Yes, the answer is yes. The cultures and institutions that prepare for and deliver organized armed violence on behalf of the state or non-state armed organizations are mostly built, commanded, and populated by men. There have always been exceptions to this rule, such as female frontline fighters, prominent female military strategists, and female heads of state who have led their countries into war. Today, an increasing number of liberal militaries are determined to allow women to serve in the armed forces, which may or may not result in changes in combat culture. The majority of women frequently support war and can develop a hatred for their adversaries. Nevertheless, the evidence suggests that men are primarily responsible for organizing and delivering violence, and this has historically been the case. As a result, it seems reasonable to call men out on war as long as we acknowledge that every act of restraint, compassion, and lawfulness in the planning and delivery of violence and armed conflict is equally likely to be the work of men. We must remember that masculine warrior culture may be both loving and ruthless. Women are not immune to the ethical strains of intrasexual competition, but they are more cautious. We permitted participants in our second trial to use a more sophisticated type of deception by avoiding the topic of commercial motivation. Women use this less than honest technique in identical situations in which males uttered outright lies. When confronted with attractive same-sex counterparts, and after lengthy exposure to photographs of attractive people, we concluded that men and women are exposed to the same intrasexual competitive dynamic. But men's unethical behavior is more flagrant, making employers more vulnerable. Masculinity and gender roles. Kimmel's goal is to assist students to understand how their sex, gender expression, and gender identity shape their ideas about masculinity as human beings. Male and female brains are not particularly different at birth, according to a study. Even with these little differences, males and females think, speak, and act differently because they are socialized in gender roles from birth. While determining the influence of biology on gender behavior is challenging, various research demonstrates that gender roles are primarily established by society. Even while cultural and biological factors are powerful, humans can select how they show themselves to the world. The more people who are knowledgeable about the option for expressing themselves, the easier it is for them to be their actual selves. Gender influences everyone, including males, in their daily lives. Gender-based violence, for example, promotes gender-based disparities, such as the masculine role, which is difficult to understand beyond gender norms, societal structures, and reinforcing roles. Throughout history, patriarchy has placed men at the heart of normalcy and logic. This is one of the reasons it's taken so long to understand masculinity as a gender construct, including men as a gender. Masculinity is a term used to describe men's position in the gender hierarchy. A challenging topic. Even though the data is apparent, the topic appears tough to broach. It's a terrible subject for most of us because we all know that while male aggression is accurate, it is only one truth about males and only one truth about each man. All this makes discussing war's masculinity tough. Most of us do not want to portray men as primarily violent. This would be unjust and would likely push men into a corner from which you would have to fight their way out. We require a more sophisticated and loving human-to-human discussion. This is difficult to do in the masculine culture of public advocacy, which is usually motivated by the outrage of both men and women in the advocacy group. The rule of law does not help much in this situation. Talking about wars, violence, and misery in legal terms results in public portrayals of armed conflict that can be abstract and gender neutral. Male behaviors are generally portrayed as violations and abuses done by parties to the dispute. These legal phrases are rarely attributed explicitly to men, even though they should be. The gendering of violence is frequently obscured rather than shown by legal jargon. Suffering, on the other hand, is currently stereotyped as primarily female, with a focus on the agony of women and children. Some female-focused aid initiatives may violate the principle of impartiality, which is based solely on need rather than identification. But men suffer horribly in war, and many resist the conflict's primarily male violence by non-violently supporting the rescue and survival of their families. Now, before we move ahead, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to our channel so that we can keep bringing more informative and fun videos for you. Your little contribution means a lot to us. Toxic masculinity. Toxic masculinity has recently been a popular term among young people on social media, podcasts, and printed books. Toxic masculinity was defined in a study published in the Journal of Psychology as a constellation of socially regressive and macho features that favor control, homophobia, devaluation of women, and wanton aggression and male norms. Toxic masculinity, according to research, strongly founded in cultural, social, scientific, and societal expectations of what a man should be and how he should behave. Toxic masculinity thinks that only homophobia, sexual harassment, sexual assault, dominance, and hostility can be exhibited as manliness. It is a misguided notion that males should not display, let alone experience, emotions which can be detrimental to their mental health. Toxic masculinity is characterized by the following characteristics: mental and physical fortitude, aggression due to emotional insensitivity, heterosexism or discrimination towards transgender persons, stoicism or the absence of emotion, self-sufficiency and refusal to accept assistance. Overemphasis on these attributes might create a dangerous imbalance in men who try not to live up to them. Some examples of imbalances are aggression, sentiment, sexual control, or aggression. So what are your thoughts about how masculine men are winning and what's the reason behind it? Tell us in the comment section below. And if you guys like this video, then be sure to give it a big thumbs up. Also, if you don't want to miss out on any new future videos, make sure to click on the subscribe button. Turn on the notification bell so that you are notified the next time we upload a video on the latest. Thanks for watching.